Well, hello there. With me taking a tiny break from playing a dozen video games per week, the polls have been set once again, and today we're reviewing another classic duo fighting it out. And oh boy, making this video was something else. The two have fought each other a lot over the past 50 years, and I could hardly reach the end of this non-stop reading I did the past couple of weeks. Nevertheless, I think I kinda did it. We will be looking at every single fight Punisher and Daredevil had in comics and find out who won the most rounds. As a quick disclaimer, I'm touching the main 616 universe only. Without any more delay, let's start. As all things have a beginning, so does the relationship between Matt Murdock and Frank Castle. The two first meet in Daredevil issue 183, released in June of 1982, and right off the bat, the story starts dark. Matt Murdock is visiting a local middle school to teach some kids about the law, when suddenly, one of the kids starts having an insane mental breakdown, to the point of hallucinations. She starts screaming and running around, and just before Matt is able to reach her, she jumps out of the window. Matt gets down fast and rushes her to the hospital, citing how the ambulance might take another 10 minutes, and he prays to God he will make it. Once there, the surgeons begin their operation, but unfortunately, it's too late. And well, Matt is understandably furious. He vows to get to the bottom of this and get some information from the doctor. It's a new drug that goes around called angel dust. But before Daredevil leaves the hospital, the girl's little brother comes in and Matt has to break down the news to him as well. Days pass as Matt is able to track down 3 teenagers selling the drug on the street. He senses they are drugged as well and are still very young, so he takes it easy on them and lets them have a few swings to make them tired. When suddenly, one of them simply drops dead in front of him. That's right, the Punisher is there. I've read about you, Daredevil. It's a pleasure to meet you. Suddenly, a shot happens from multiple blocks away, hitting a person next to them who seemed like he was running away. That was Flapper, the kid's supervisor who was overseeing the drug sale. Daredevil leaps to the rooftop to find out who did it, only to see little Billy, the kid whose sister just passed away. Matt asks him to give the gun back, and that everything will be alright. Or will it? Alright, not gonna lie, that was a pretty grim first meeting the two shared. 80s Daredevil goes kinda hard sometimes. Next day, Matt takes Billy's case and becomes his attorney. He begins his own investigation and finds out that even though Billy shot the gun, he did not actually hit the target, so he is not a killer. The person responsible was blocks away and used a rifle, not some old gun. And as Matt investigates, he hears screams far away. Yes, Punisher is doing his own investigation too, and he is about to finish a local junkie, when Matt jumps in and the two begin fighting. Even though Matt lands a kick, he is immediately surprised as Punisher does a roll and counterattacks him swiftly, breaking his concentration. Matt throws a billy club, but Punisher shoots it mid-flight, preventing the hit. The two start brawling, but then Frank takes out a gun and simply shoots Daredevil. He lets Red know that this was a tranquilizing gun and that he will simply get some much needed sleep. Punisher then picks up the junkie and simply proceeds to beating him to death, until his heart literally stops. Matt realizes he's about to lose consciousness as he starts crawling towards the dead man. He begins heart massage with the last inch of willpower he has, hit after hit, and with just enough luck, the man wakes up as Matt hears a heartbeat once again. Being somewhat thankful for saving his life, the man gives Daredevil all the information to find the main bad guy. His name is Hogman, so Matt finds him and basically gets the guy to the police. Seems like a happy ending, right? But not really. As Hogman is being taken to custody, the Punisher arrives and tries to assassinate him, but Daredevil is there too, and as Frank starts shooting, Matt dodges for a little and then simply stops. Punisher wonders why, and Matt simply lets him know that he did his research. He knows Frank does not kill innocents, so he doesn't need to do anything. He trusts Frank will not make the shot. Punisher admits that's true, and actually calls truce, saying he will be back for Hogman later and he doesn't want to shoot Daredevil. And that's when Daredevil picks up a gun and simply says no, you're going to jail. You wouldn't dare, says Frank, as he turns to take a shot, and that's when Matt actually just shoots Frank, straight up, in the shoulder that is though. And well, that's the end of the story. Hogman is saved by Matt and testifies in court. Little Billy is pronounced innocent and goes free. The child asks Matt at the end if it's really right to let that man live. To which Matt simply replies his classic mantra: the only way for us to live as humans, without killing each other every day, is to trust in the system. Sure, says Billy, sure, as he walks away disappointingly. knowing he would never get the true justice he wants. And with that, we're done with the first full story between Daredevil and Punisher. I know it took a while, but I wanted their first meeting to be special, you know? Let's rate it quickly. First fight, Punisher was the obvious winner as he shoots Matt with a tranquilizer, and even though Matt did manage to save the junkie, he lost. And the second fight is a clear win from Matt as he legit just shoots Frank down. So we've got 1-1, let's move on. Next time the duo fights is only a few years later in Daredevil 257, and the context is much more brief this time. The Punisher is about to throw a criminal off the roof to end him, and that's when Daredevil arrives and throws a club that stops Frank. The two begin a fist fight with Matt landing multiple solid punches, getting Frank down to the ground. But then Frank does a sweeping move and pulls out a knife to even the odds. Daredevil gets him in a hold, but Frank does a roll and gets rid of him. And right before he grabs the gun, Daredevil kicks him once again and makes him drop it. Punches continue flying one after the other when suddenly the criminal wakes up and decides to just shoot both of them. And of course, his screen goes to black real fast. Well, this was a quickie. The two fought for a while there, and even though Matt landed majority of the hits, there is no clear winner, so it's a tie for me. 2-2, both points to each. Next time I could find the two brawling was in Daredevil 293, just a couple years later once again, and things are definitely a lot different here. In an interesting way, that is. The story starts with Daredevil having a fight with Taskmaster of all people, and he rushes on a bus to run over Red over here. Daredevil throws a billy club and puts the bus in a park as it suddenly stops, and Taskmaster ragdolls out of the window. The fight begins, and the villain seems to have an upper hand at first, thinking he is about to school Daredevil here, as he fought Captain America himself before. And at first, he chokes Matt, but then gets both punched and kicked in the face right away, which surprises the villain quite a bit. Tasky then jumps at Matt and tries to kick him, but is immediately counterattacked, which just surprises the villain even more as he continues talking praises towards Matt in a somewhat condescending way. While Tasky is blabbering, Matt senses a car rushing at them from far away, so he decides to use Taskmaster's eagerness to their little game to his advantage. Matt starts a quick dare game with Taskmaster. He asks if he's even that good at copying other superhero moves and shows him a neat little double jump. Taskmaster takes offense to that and immediately repeats it. And that's when the car fucking slams Taskmaster, and we see that Punisher was driving it. With Tasky down, Frank gets his gun out and is about to end him, but Matt of course swiftly knocks the gun out of his hands and just sends Frank flying down to the ground. Punisher then takes a knife down and throws it at Matt, but Matt takes the gun he just took away from Punisher and shoots the knife down mid-flight, making it ricochet and stab Taskmaster again, basically putting him in an immobile state for good. With this, Frank realizes he might be a little bit out of his game here, so he just runs away, and Daredevil stays with Tasky to make sure he's arrested. This round I think goes to Daredevil because of some neat moves he showed. 3-2 score, with Daredevil in the lead. Next up we're entering Marvel Knights era, which I talked about during one of my previous videos. And in here everything is kinda sad for Frank too. In this issue, Daredevil decides to finally arrest the Punisher and put him behind bars, as he sneaks behind and immediately knocks all his weapons away from him. Punisher, clearly traumatized from the last encounter, takes a hidden gun out and simply says, "Leave me alone, or I shoot myself." Matt does not believe him and listens to his heartbeat, which surprisingly to him seems to be the truth. So Matt says, okay, you win, and leaves. Yeah, that's it. I'm honestly not sure who is the real 100% winner here, but I'll give it to Daredevil. Frank clearly knew he was outmatched and resorted to an interesting tactic. And did you notice Frank is kinda nerfed in these recent comics? But don't worry, that will change very soon. 4-2 with Daredevil in the lead. Next up, a couple of very brief encounters in a Deadpool comic book I've covered previously. Punisher was hunting for Deadpool because he thought Wade killed a bunch of innocent people, which was false. Frank was cutting Wade's limbs one by one, and right before beheading him, Daredevil kicked him in the back and knocked him out. Very soon after, Punisher decided to be the one who attacks in the back and used some supersonic noise to bring Daredevil down, and continued fighting Wade one-on-one. Both were sucker punches and both characters deserve a point in my opinion, so it's a 5-3. If you want to see this whole story, go see my video on every time Punisher tried to kill Deadpool. I covered this whole story over there. And now we're moving to what I promised just recently. That's right, Punisher's nerf is down. He's getting a gigantic buff now. We're entering Garth Ennis's Punisher arc. and oh boy is this a fun one. If you saw my videos before, you know how overpowered Frank gets here, to the point of soloing Wolverine and getting some metal elbows out of nowhere. So let's see how he does against Daredevil. Thankfully we don't have to wait long because it happens already in issue 3. The story starts simple as Frank has entered his classic form, murdering criminals by dozens at a time and basically causing complete chaos. Matt is pretty pissed and finds Frank on a rooftop with a sniper, telling him to drop the gun. They begin fight and Matt is landing multiple hits, and here's where we finally get some of Frank's internal monologue while fighting Daredevil. He admits that in hand-to-hand fight in the long run, he simply has no chance. But that's why he once again brought some supersonic booms with him, and this time he uses them to knock out Matt for good, as Daredevil wakes up chained up on a rooftop with a gun in his hand. That's right, this is where Daredevil Season 2 got their inspiration from. Frank tells Matt the simple rules of the game. Matt either shoots Frank, or Frank shoots a mobster he's looking at with his rifle. Whatever Matt does, someone dies, and it's up to Matt to make that choice. Either shoot Frank and stop him, and it's gonna be a headshot because Frank is wearing some armor, or do nothing and Frank shoots the guy instead. And the way it goes is quite different from the TV show. Matt gets pressured, not knowing what to do, and in the end simply gives in, choosing to shoot Frank, only to realize there is no firing pin, as Frank knocks him out and leaves. This is quite different from the show once again, as there, Matt decides not to shoot Frank, and I like that version a lot more, because I don't believe canon Matt Murdock would choose to headshot Punisher like that himself. But nevertheless, this round goes to Punisher obviously, 5-4 with Daredevil still in the lead. Now moving on, it's time for a big one. In 2005, a whole comic book series came out dedicated to their rivalry, simply titled Punisher vs. Daredevil, Means and Ends. And in that comic, we get a lot of fights between Frank and Matt, as the writers finally realized it's an interesting conflict to cover in depth. So let's dive in. The premise of the story is ultimately about Frank deciding to gun down the latest criminal boss of New York, called Hammerhead. So he gets into a good spot and waits. But Daredevil is there already. He warns Frank not to do it and get out of his city immediately. But the fight starts regardless. Matt evades multiple shots, gets Frank's guns and starts destroying him in close quarters. Punisher takes all hits like a rock, as he literally says himself, and does land a single good hit that sends Daredevil flying. And that gives him a chance to throw a smoke bomb and escape, because he hears police coming. 1 point to each, 6-5. Next night, the Punisher is a lot more careful, as he realizes he has to be extra stealthy not to get Daredevil's attention. And as soon as he arrives at his sniping spot, surprise surprise, he sees that Matt is already there, waiting for him. And that kinda shocks the Punisher, as he starts wondering that maybe he is the devil after all. He decides to leave and not start a fight. This does piss him off a lot though, and he decides it's time to finally end Daredevil. Not kill him of course, but at least cripple him so he stops being such a big problem. Days later, both heroes go through a bunch of enemies on their own, including Daredevil catching and getting rid of Bushwhacker. When Matt finally finds Frank's van, he knows it's a trap, but the only way to know for sure is to lure him out. Shots come out immediately and Matt dodges them. Frank moves closer and this time is able to shoot away the billy clubs that are flying at him, managing to keep his guns, but that does not stop Daredevil, as he jumps out and still gets close and personal. They start trading hits. This time though, Matt uses a neat little trick he got from Elektra to paralyze Frank's arm and do multiple hits that essentially put Frank down to the ground, and that pisses him off a lot. At this point it's too much, he doesn't care anymore, he will kill Daredevil. He gets a gun out and begins shooting non-stop. In his own words, he loses it. Daredevil is able to evade all the shots, but the bullet hits an innocent homeless man, and that's when both heroes stop, knowing it's not about them anymore. Matt throws a billy club and knocks Punisher out, getting the homeless man and running to the hospital with him. Well, I'd say I'm pretty confident this one goes to Matt, 7-5. Their final battle happens in the last issue a few days later, with both fighting in a small apartment, trading blows non-stop at each other, with Matt ending up trying to choke Frank out, but Frank is able to bite Daredevil's leg very hard and ends up getting him on the ground, kicking him down non-stop and screaming, "It's over, it's over," which does not help, as Matt gets up and starts choking him again. The fight is interrupted by a kid who aims a gun at them, and what can I say? Overall, the Punisher went kinda into a feral mode here and was able to keep up with Daredevil for the first time in a while. He could not win though, so both points to each again, 8-6. The story does end with Frank going into prison though, surrounded by cops, as Daredevil goes away. Their next encounter is just a few years later in Brian Michael Bendis' run, and it's very short, as Punisher has escaped prison and is on the run. But once again, he got a bit nerfed, and Matt literally takes him down in 2 hits, making very quick work and getting the FBI to take him again, 9-6. And you know what? All this bickering and fighting kinda makes me miss when these two actually work together as friends. So we're making a little side journey with a couple of good stories when these two were pals, because I want to. First up, we've got the famous prison arc from Daredevil's comics, when Matt was outed as Daredevil and put to prison. As soon as Frank heard about it, he immediately gave himself into the police, just to join his buddy. In prison, Frank touted Matt as finally becoming like him, and very soon to get his first kill going. They also wreaked quite a bit of havoc together, beating some notorious criminals. The arc concluded with all three, Matt, Frank, and Wilson Fisk, fighting against nearly every single other inmate in prison, and basically creating complete chaos, with even Bullseye joining in on the fun. By the end of the story, Matt actually stops by at Frank's cell and proposes an escape plan, handing him a shotgun, which was kinda cool I guess. Another great moment was when the duo joined forces with Spider-Man, as they have acquired the Fantastic Four hard drive with limitless information on every single criminal organization in US. All of the underworld was after them, and together they fought off and put away literally hundreds of people together. In the end, 3 of them decided to destroy the drive because it just had too much power, and anyone who had it could gain limitless reaches. This was one of the coolest team-ups they had. Nice of Spider-Man to join as well. And with that, time to stop with the bromance. We're here to fight after all. Their next bickering moments happened quite some time after, about 5 years as far as I can tell, in a comic book called Daredevil and Punisher, 7th Circle, with the same old tale happening once again as Frank tries to kill a prisoner and Matt protects him. What's different this time though is that Matt actually had a sidekick at the time called Blind Spot, and that's the first fight. Punisher versus Daredevil's sidekick. And even though Blind Spot is able to land some pretty good punches, Punisher takes him down rather quickly. The story culminates once again with the two beginning a big final showdown, and Daredevil is able to beat Frank here rather easy this time, landing all of the hits and getting Frank down to the ground, ultimately saving the prisoner and stopping it all. 10-6. And would you look at that? We're gonna be done soon, huh? Next encounter I could find was when Punisher got War Machine armor after the death of the hero, and war to dispense justice multiplied by 10. Daredevil of course tried to stop him, but he could not do anything against the power Frank had at the time, so he got blasted pretty much immediately, as a little revenge by Frank for all these beatings over the years. And as he flew away, Daredevil lost. Later on Frank squares against Avengers, mind you. 10-7. And here's where we come to what seems to be the final, last comic book arc where these two had numerous fights. And some of the best fights I've ever seen in comics, honestly. We're of course talking about the amazing run on Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky. And the first fight happens rather quickly in issue 3. This one is legit in my top 3 favorites fights of all time. Matt is beat up, chained down on a bed, as Frank has him and another poor criminal at his mercy. This is the story where Daredevil actually killed the criminal for the very first time earlier, so Frank congratulates him, saying that after all these years, he finally saw the light. Matt denies it, as he still cannot believe he committed a murder in an issue prior, but Frank knows the truth. He brings another petty criminal and asks Matt to kill him, to which he of course says no, and very predictably, Punisher kills the guy himself. Matt absolutely loses it, and breaks the restraints, jumping at Frank, but gets kicked down quickly. Knowing he's wounded and outmatched, he grabs a sniper rifle and lands a shot at Frank's Kevlar. He then grabs double pistols and shows just how dangerous he is when using guns. He takes 4 shots, all just scraping Frank, to show that he can kill him at any second. He then calls Frank an amateur and says that if he wanted, he could shoot better than anyone and kill a lot more people than Frank. He then does one of the coldest lines ever, saying that "You may be a demon, Frank, but I am the devil," shooting all of Frank's dynamite and exploding his base. He then throat punches Frank and puts him down, carrying him out to safety. One of the coldest lines that Daredevil's ever said. 11-7. Months later, we get to the final Punisher arc in comics, at least at the time. Frank Castle becomes the vassal of the Beast, the ancient devil the Hand Clan worships, an old enemy of Daredevil. He gains immense power, going after and killing the god of war Ares, to prove that he is the ultimate god of war himself. He also now has an army of ninjas, and resurrected his dead wife thanks to the power of the hand. Overall, the guy went full on cool ass villain arc, and I kinda love it. And of course, when that happens, Matt decides to pay him a visit. Matt explains that no matter what Frank thinks, the Hand is true evil, and it's only using him to get what they want. Frank says he needs no permission to do whatever the hell he wants, and asks to leave. Matt, however, says that maybe he should go see Frank's resurrected wife, and tell her the truth. Tell her what her husband has been doing all these years while she was dead. And that line puts Frank into a feral mode as he grabs and throws Daredevil far away, saying that he will only give him one chance to leave. And the fight begins. Matt is able to land blow after blow and evade Punisher's sword, as Frank is still not very good at using it. He seems to have an upper hand and brings Frank down fast. He gets his cross out and starts praying, literally exorcising the demon out of Frank. But that only makes the Beast more mad as he explodes with flames and grabs Daredevil by the throat, telling him to leave immediately. Matt knows he is outmatched, so he retreats, but only because Frank lets him do so. Punisher wins with his total score going to 8 against Daredevil's 11. With this, Matt knows he has no other choice but to assemble his own army, the Army of the Fist, to take down the Hand's and Punisher's army. Him and his people all get enhanced strength and agility through an ancient ritual, and once ready, they fly out to face the Punisher, who is already ahead, waiting for them with his own army and a freaking dragon. They begin an absolutely intense fight, and a final one in comics so far, with complete chaos, death and destruction happening everywhere. As the armies clash, the two leaders fight each other on top of the mountain in one final showdown. Frank is able to slash Matt's face and bring him down to the ground, with Punisher screaming, "Your god is dead. You know how I know? His blood rained down on me and my family. I'm avenging your god." That gives Daredevil just enough rage to break the hold and do multiple devastating attacks, saying, "This is the end, Frank. You're out of bullets, out of blades. And do you know how I know you're wrong? God is alive, because he lets you breathe his air every day." He continues pressing on Punisher, making him lose air and literally drowning in mud, but chooses to keep him alive and leave. He jumps on the dragon and breaks the spell of control, making the dragon free and fly away. The battle ends with Matt going back to the base, having retrieved the amulet they needed for the win. And while it can be argued their army lost since they had to retreat, Daredevil defeated the Punisher 1-on-1. So it's 12-8, with Matt winning the final battle, and being the winner overall from all fights these two have shared. And what can I say? Overall, it's not exactly a surprise to me Daredevil won, seeing as how he's quite literally a ninja, and Frank Castle is more of a military man. Regardless of the outcome, it was just great going back all the way to their original meeting, seeing how in the first one, Frank outright refused to shoot Matt, and chose truce over fighting, while over the years, the hate only grew stronger, and at times Frank was outright ready to cripple Matt over how mad he was. Despite all of that, they built a lot of respect as well, choosing to team up and fight together for the greater good at times. And over 50 years later, after their first meeting, seeing them have such a gigantic showdown on a scale of a full-on war was quite honestly just exhilarating. And with that, if you liked the video, I'd really appreciate your like and subscription. Next video is going to be another everywhere you can play as, most likely, and I'll do a poll in a few days on who to pick. See you next time. Bye bye.